Alongside lightsabers and the Millennium Falcon, one of the most iconic aspects of Star Wars is its constant use of superweapons. These weapons and their destructive capabilities have been, and always will be, a mainstay across the space opera, with new writers of the films, shows, comics, and games seemingly always finding a way to either utilize a pre-existing superweapon from Star Wars legends or canon, or invent a completely new terror machine for the heroes to inevitably blow up. So with that in mind, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 deadliest superweapons in Star Wars. Number 10, World Devastator. The World Devastators, or World Smashers, were created by the Dark Empire in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, and were one of the most useful superweapons used by the Imperials. The large machines were equipped with strong tractor beams on their lower halves, meaning they were able to tear the surface beneath them, causing complete and utter chaos. Unlike Death Stars, for instance, these World Devastators were not merely planet-killing machines. No. These superweapons could be used to ruin a planet's surface, stomping out rebellious defense while harvesting the resources of the planet that it was actually wreaking havoc upon. These resources would then later be used to both power the machine's foundries, which produced warships and weaponry, as well as fueling itself, making the World Devastators very sophisticated yet very terrifying machines. The World Devastators were first seen in Star Wars Dark Empire back in 1992, where they began to devastate the New Republic's temporary homeworld, Mon Calamari. It was only through R2-D2 creating a virus, which would then be fed to the machines, that Luke Skywalker was able to destroy the World Devastators and free the planet from the Imperial destruction. Number 9, the Inhibitor Chip. When Revenge of the Sith released in 2005, there was virtually no explanation as to why the clone troopers turned against the Jedi that they had been fighting with for years, and just execute them with no remorse. For a long time, the explanation of this betrayal remained a contentious topic, with writers choosing to opt for the idea that the clones were loyal to the Chancellor and the Republic first and foremost, and so any order coming from Palpatine was to be immediately followed without hesitation. However, with the 6th season of the Clone Wars, this idea had changed. See, the show introduced the Inhibitor Chip as the cause of the clones' turn. While strictly not a megastructure, inhibitor chips were placed in every clone during their creation, and were then used to control the soldiers' every action. Therefore, because of the chip, Palpatine was able to strip the clones of their free will and force them to kill their friends and generals through Order 66. The chip was also used for other evil orders as well, namely Order 37, as this order forced troops to round up nearby civilians and murder all of the innocents if a Jedi did not show themselves. Number 8, Malevolence. Seen in the first season of Star Wars The Clone Wars, the Malevolence was a separatist heavy cruiser and flagship of General Grievous, which had a pair of massive ion cannons on its hull and the ship's port. When fired, the blast disrupted any starship it came into contact with, and these ships had all of their energies, weaponry, and defense measures disabled, meaning they were completely vulnerable and were usually destroyed in a matter of moments by the Malevolence's many laser cannons. Now, not only was the warship equipped with its dangerous ion and laser cannons, but the Malevolence also carried an abundance of vulture droids, rocket battle droids, and a plethora of B-1s, B-2s, and droidicars on board, making an invasion of the ship a Herculean task. Still, what the Clone Wars proved is that no matter how dangerous a weapon might be, a well-placed bit of Jedi ingenuity could overcome and stop it, as was proven when Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker crashed the ship into a nearby moon. Number 7, Mass Shadow Generator. The Mass Shadow Generator was a horrifyingly destructive superweapon created by the Jedi Knight Revan that was able to pull local natural shadows created by celestial bodies, with it then unleashing a deadly blast, annihilating anything on and above the planet that it was stationed at. In an attempt to end the Mandalorian Wars once and for all, Revan lured a massive Mandalorian fleet to Malachor 5, where the generator would then be activated, which drew many ships into a gravity vortex and crushed them, as well as fracturing the planet itself. Because of the Mass Shadow Generator, Malachor 5 became a broken graveyard of both Republic and Mandalorian warships, with nearly all life on the surface being completely annihilated. Number 6, the Death Star. The first and, of course, most recognizable superweapon in Star Wars is the Death Star. Appearing in A New Hope, the Death Star could produce a powerful blast, which could range from destroying a city to an entire planet. And considering the Death Star was a complete and fully operational battle system, one of the biggest dangers the superweapon posed to the galaxy other than its laser blasts was its maneuverability. See, the Death Star was fully equipped with a hyperdrive, meaning it could travel to virtually anywhere in the Star Wars universe. Therefore, if the Empire deemed a planet to be a threat, the station could get from one side of the galaxy to the other and completely obliterate the planet, as was seen with the rebel-sympathizing Alderaan. The Death Star's only weakness was an intentional flaw created by the rebellious Galen Erso, but even that didn't stop it from coming back in Return of the Jedi, but more on that in a bit. Number 5, Sun Crusher. Residing in Star Wars Legends, the Sun Crusher was created by the Empire and would fire energy resonance torpedoes which burrowed into stars, collapsing their core and ultimately causing a supernova, which would obliterate an entire star system. As well as this devastating weapon, the machine was also equipped with a hyperdrive, making it even more dangerous than it initially seemed, for reasons that I just explained in the Death Star entry. Worse still, the Star Crusher was coated in a powerful material, quantum crystalline armor, which was so strong that all fire from starships would just bounce off it, making the Crusher nearly invincible. And in the Star Wars Legends continuity, the Sun Crusher was used to destroy the Cauldron Nebula and was only stopped when it was sucked into a black hole. And you know something's pretty hard when its only weakness is a literal black hole. Like, that's just badass. Although the Sun Crusher is not part of canon, its capabilities make it a complete nightmare for the galaxy, with its power being nearly unbelievable. Number 4, the Death Star 2. Being much bigger and more destructive than the first, the second Death Star was a fun, albeit kinda lazy addition to Return of the Jedi. As well as the laser dish, the battle station was equipped with tens of thousands of heavy turbo laser and super blaster cannons, making it a nearly invincible and impenetrable fortress. And whilst the weapon was never used to eradicate a planet, it was used several times to destroy a few Mon Calamari starcruisers with ease. So, not only was the Death Star 2 a planet destroyer, but it was also a fleet killer. Still, much like its predecessor, the second Death Star had a few major weaknesses. I mean, by Return of the Jedi, the battle station itself was still under construction, despite it being fully armed and operational. This meant that the weapon had to be tethered to the forest moon of Endor, where a shield generator provided defense for the Death Star whilst it was being completed. And as the film shows, when that reactor was destroyed, the entire weapon collapsed. Number 3, the Final Order Star Destroyers. One of the many failings of the Rise of Skywalker was its insistence to cram in yet another superweapon amongst its overbearing original trilogy pandering. Even so, the Final Order's Star Destroyers were very powerful indeed, with them being nearly as dangerous as Starkiller Base itself. See, the Star Destroyers had all of the abilities of the Death Stars, that being planet-killing laser fire, but the Phantom Emperor had hundreds of them, making them the most hazardous superweapon in terms of mobility. If he wanted to, Palpatine could destroy hundreds of planets in one go with the Star Destroyers, making them exceptionally dangerous. Even so, these Star Destroyers suffered heavily from lacking many defensive measures. As The Rise of Skywalker shows, the large cannons attached to the bottom of the ships were very delicate and susceptible to attacks of any kind. So a few torpedoes would start a chain reaction of explosions, ultimately resulting in the ship's destruction. Number 2, Starkiller Base. One of the biggest focuses of The Force Awakens' plot was Starkiller Base. Although it was only used once on screen, the base was able to produce a planet-killing laser by channeling the strength of its local star. The laser itself had the capability to split once it had been fired as well, meaning that it could actually hit and destroy more than one target with a single blast. This was of course seen during the events of the film, where the First Order used the weapon to destroy Hosnian Prime, amongst other Republic planets, which essentially gives Snoke clearance to reinstate a form of Imperial rule, since every major planet that had governed the galaxy no longer existed. Because of this, the Starkiller Base is more dangerous than both Death Stars combined, simply because it could destroy multiple planets at once. Number 1, the Starforge. Included in the 2003 classic Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the Starforge is quite possibly the most dangerous superweapon in Star Wars history. hence it getting the #1 spot. Created by the Rakata, the Forge fed off the dark side itself and was capable of utilizing nearby components to mass-produce starships and weapons at an exceptionally fast rate, much like the world Devastators. Put in the wrong hands then, and someone would have enough resources to take over the entire galaxy. And this nearly happened after Darth Malak gained control of the Forge and began an operation to crush the Republic and take over the Star Wars universe. It was only due to a redeemed Bastila Shan that the Star Forge was able to fail. Although certainly not the flashiest super weapon on this list, the potential of the Star Forge makes it the deadliest and scariest super weapon in the franchise. With enough demented determination, a Sith Lord could choose to either conquer the galaxy or wreak total havoc on it with the Forge, without any hope of stopping them once they got going. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of these Star Wars super weapons, and are there any incredibly powerful ones I missed off here? Let me know, and while you're down there, could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to What Culture Star Wars for more lists like this on the regular. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.